Welcome. Okay, I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine spending hours and hours decorating a house with the most luxurious furniture, picking out the most beautiful curtains, hanging up expensive art, but you completely left the foundation of the house cracked and leaning. What's going to happen? The curtains fall, the furniture collapses, and that beauty doesn't last. Sadly, this is exactly what a lot of us are doing when reciting the Quran. We're on an urgent rescue mission today. I've got my strict Tajweed teacher hat on because, well, we need a bit of an intervention. Your recitation might be in danger, and today we are fixing it from the roots up. We're going to go through a positive Tajweed shock together, uprooting those bad habits and giving you the exact practical tools to recite the Book of Allah with beauty, precision, and absolute confidence.
So here's the shocking truth. Are you, completely by accident, changing the literal meaning of the Quran's verses just because you're suffocating your letters? I know. It sounds a little dramatic, but the truth is most learners are making the exact same catastrophic recitation errors right this very second without even realizing it. Look, the problem isn't your effort or your sincere intention. The problem is just a lack of proper guidance. We're guessing how to make sounds instead of pulling them from their actual physical articulation points. You might think you're pronouncing a word perfectly in your head, but to a trained ear, you're saying something entirely different, and you might literally be changing the meaning. Let's look at one of the biggest traps we fall into. Picture the incredibly common and kind of embarrassing disaster of mixing up Arabic letters. To a non-native ear, or really anyone who hasn't trained for this, the letter sin and the letter sad sound like, well, just a regular S sound. But physically, they live in entirely different neighborhoods inside your mouth. Mixing them up is literally like putting salt instead of sugar in a cake. It's a recipe for disaster. Sin is a light, sharp sound that comes from the very front of the mouth. Sad, on the other hand, is a heavy, thick letter that requires you to raise the back of your tongue. You can't just guess the sound by ear. You literally have to train your mouth muscles to find where these letters live. Try saying as-samad. Now imagine if you said it with a thin sin. You just completely changed the meaning and ruined the beauty of it. Now, even though I'm joking around about your letters doing mouth gymnastics, the goal here is incredibly serious and profound. Just visualize the awe-inspiring presence of the open mushaf right in front of you. That deep reverence and respect we have for this amazing book is exactly why we care so much about our pronunciation. We aren't learning this to show off. We want to preserve the precise phonetics of the revelation from centuries ago. Getting the recitation right is in itself a pure act of worship. We are striving to honor the noble Quranic text, and fixing these basic mechanics is our very first beautiful step on this blessed journey. All right, let's dive right into this and unpack some of the most common phonetic traps you're probably falling into. First up, the weak ayn. This letter comes from the middle of the throat, but so many of us get lazy and just swap it for a regular vowel or a hamza. Don't let the ayn disappear. Next, the famous dhad. Did you know the Arabic language is actually called the language of the dhad because this letter is so unique? It requires the edges of your tongue to touch your upper molars, but beginners take the easy way out and replace it with a basic dal. Guys, a dal is not a dhad. And finally, ignoring breath management or waqf. We just read and read and read until our lungs are completely empty, and then we just awkwardly stop mid-thought. No way, we can do much better than this. Okay, brace yourselves. What if I told you there is a classified secret weapon to revive your silent consonants instead of suffocating them inside your mouth? This right here is the plot twist. This is what separates a struggling beginner from a master reciter. It's called qalqala. It is literally the magical secret that gives certain letters a tiny kick, a little bounce, so they stay audible, clear, and prominent, instead of just being swallowed and vanishing into thin air when you stop on them. Let's define this secret weapon clearly. Qalqala is a bouncing echo sound. It happens specifically when we pronounce just 5 letters, qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal, whenever they carry a sukun, meaning they have no vowel. Notice I said echo. It is a short, percussive release. It is absolutely not a full vowel. You're simply leaving the articulation point of the letter super fast to create a tiny vibration or a light pop that makes the letter pop out to the listener. Let's move on and see how this echo scales up in different situations. There are 3 degrees to this bounce. First, the minor qalqala. This happens right in the middle of a word when you're continuing to read, like the word yatma'un. Listen closely. Yat-ta-ma'un. A soft, quick internal bounce. Second is the major qalqala, which happens when we stop at the end of a word, like al-haq. Hear it? Al-haq. It's clear and strong. And finally, the strongest qalqala. This one is explosive. It happens when you stop on a word ending with a letter that has a shudda, like the endisur al-masad, watab. Did you hear that? Watab. You press your lips together hard and release them with a dramatic, clear pop. But here, oh here, is where a Tajweed teacher's heart literally breaks. The most agonizing mistake a teacher hears is when a student overdoes the qalqala. Look at Surah Ikhlas. The correct way to stop is as-samad, with a clear, crisp, short bounce on the dal. But what do people do? They invent a whole new vowel. They say as-samadakh. Guys, please, I am begging you, do not invent your own vowels. We don't make up new letters in the Quran. It is just a tiny, rhythmic tap, not a whole new syllable ending in an H. Let's fix that right now. And since time is gold and we can't waste a second, let's transition quickly. Let's tackle the notorious rules of the letter R. This single letter causes so much confusion because it simply refuses to be just one thing. Depending on its mood, or rather, depending on its vowels, the ra can be deep and heavy in the back of the mouth, which is tafkhim, or sharp and light, which is tarqiq. Here is your quick, foolproof rulebook for the ra. If the ra has a fatha or dhamma on top of it, make it heavy. Fill the back of your mouth with air and sound. If it has a kasra underneath it, here I want you to literally smile and make it thin, light, and sharp. Now, because the Arabic language absolutely loves surprises, there are 5 exceptional words in the Quran where the ra is heavy even though there's a kasra before it because it's followed by a heavy elevated letter. Words like mirsad or qurtas. The crucial question here is, what on earth do you do when the ra is silent, when it has a sukoon and no vowel at all? Well, here is a golden 3-step mental checklist you can use on the fly. Step 1, look at the ra itself. Step 2, oh, you notice the sukoon, it's silent? Immediately jump and look at the letter right before it. Step 3, apply the exact same heavy or light rule based on that preceding vowel. If the letter before it has a fatha or dhamma, the silent ra is heavy. If it has a kasra, it's light. It's simple, it's elegant, and it works every single time. Now we have to talk about a serious crime, stealing time. Yes, you heard me. Are you a phonetic thief? I'm dramatically pleading with you here. Do not wrong the letters by rushing and stealing their rightful time for mud. The Quran has very precise rules for mud, which means lengthening the vowel sounds. Improperly stretching sounds or snatching them away too fast is one of the most obvious mistakes you can make. Rushing through elongated letters drastically changes the phonetic weight of the words. Just imagine the rules of Mad like a giant branching family tree. As you'll see, everything starts at the roots with natural Mad, which is just a normal elongation of 2 counts, like a natural breath. But from those roots, depending on whether there's a hamza or a sukoon following that long vowel, the branches expand into complex extensions that demand 4, 5, or even 6 full counts of elongation. You have to climb this tree carefully. So how do we actually apply this without just guessing? The biggest mistake is rushing a 4-count mad so fast it sounds like 1 count. You're basically running over the letters. Here is a highly practical, physical tip for you. Use your fingers. Seriously, right now while you're listening, I want you to put your hand on your knee. When you recite, tap your fingers on your knee or unfold them one by one to build a consistent rhythm. No more guessing. If the mad requires 4 counts, top 4 equal times. Give the words their exact phonetic weight. And speaking of rhythm, let's talk about oxygen, the arts of waqf. Master your breath and you master your meaning. I'm going to playfully scold you here for a second. Stop randomly pausing in the middle of a sentence just because you ran out of air. Stopping in the wrong place isn't just awkward, it can completely alter the meaning of a verse. Breath management is a foundational part of Tajweed. Open up the pages of the Mus'haf and take a close look. Scholars have literally placed tiny stop signs on the page to save us. All you have to do is look for them. See those tiny letters hovering above the words? A tiny meme means you have a mandatory stop. And a law sign? That literally means no way, do not stop here, keep going. Respect these marks. Plan your breath before you start the verse. And if you absolutely have to stop because you're out of oxygen, make sure you backtrack a couple of words to start from a safe place. Okay, we made it. You've learned the rules, you've listened to my dramatic pleading, and now it is time for the ultimate challenge. We are going to test your brand new skills on a surah that is notoriously tricky. I guarantee you, if you can pass this, you are on the right track. Stay locked in with me because we are looking at Surah Al-Balad, specifically verses 5 through 7. Here is your checklist for avoiding the immediate traps hiding in these verses. First, do not mix up the hamza and the ayn. Say it correctly. Yahsabu. People accidentally swallow the letters here. Feel that ayn coming from the middle of your throat. Next, we have a silent qaf in yaqdira. Qaf is a heavy letter and it's a qalqala letter, so give it a deep, strong bounce. Don't just say yaqdira with no echo. And finally, a mud sila. When you say yarahu ahad, don't rush that ha, elongate it. I dare you to recite these verses right after this without making a single mistake we talked about today.
At the end of the day, beyond all the strict rules, the bouncing letters, and the finger tapping, this is really all about our hearts. As it's beautifully stated in our sources, may Almighty Allah make the Quran a light of our hearts and a guide in our entire life. We aren't fixing our tajweed just to follow dry rules. We're doing it out of deep sincerity and respect for our lifelong journey with this incredible book. Every correction you make is a step closer to reciting it exactly as it was originally revealed. I'm leaving you with a direct, practical question. You have the tools now, you know where the traps are hiding. Which tajweed rule are you going to fix in your very next prayer? Don't wait until tomorrow, pick just one thing, whether it's the qalqala bounce, tapping out your mod rhythm, or finally getting that ayn out of your throat, and apply it today. Keep learning, keep practicing, and until next time, keep reciting with purpose.